Hello, so this is another thing that's been discussed. I thought I'd do a quick video on now. So I've bought myself a good quality new messenger bag. This is actually one of those Chinese ones you can get for about £30 to £50 on AliExpress that they then resell for a hell of a lot more money on some of the Western ones, the ones like the leather and the magnetic buckles. So anyway, that's the bag itself. I just need to unzip it as well. But what we're going to do in this video is, like Weapon Collector and a lot of other people suggested, is pop some armoured panels in there. So it might be easier if I take this off to do this, but what I've got here obviously is the stab and handgun panel from a ballistic vest. And again, like I've said before, you can buy these separately on eBay and places. This one is actually one of the largest size possible ones you can get, so it probably would have been better for this particular video if I had a smaller panel, but never mind, this will do for what I want to show here. So what I'm just going to do is cram it in there now off camera, then I'll show it you all in there. Okay, so the panel's now in the bag. Now, I'd actually recommend you get a much smaller panel than this for, again, depends on the measurements of your bag. And again, like people have said, you can do it with chopping boards or magazines and newspapers taped together to have a similar effect. But this is the proper handgun resistant and knife resistant panel in there. So the point of this is that we were bringing up in other videos is you could use a bag like this a bit like a shield if you had to in the event of some sort of attack going on. Basically because obviously if you've got something in there that is both obviously the handgun resistant, but that wasn't really what we were talking about for UK stuff, it was more the knife resistance factor. You can have this and use as a shield obviously, because if there's something in the bag that's going to fully stop a knife going through and somebody slashing through it, then obviously this can be used like a shield. Now, some bags are probably better than others in terms of how you could, hold them to use as a shield. But the point being is that obviously in a life and death situation, having something like this with the complete stab proofing layer in it is going to do a hell of a lot more to protect you and other people than if you had nothing. Because again, like I said, we should be allowed pepper spray and other things like that, but we're not in this country, so we are where we are. So like I said, I'd probably recommend actually a much thinner panel than that one, not as bulky, because the problem with this one is it takes up most of the bag even when folded, but I didn't really think about at the time that the very large panels would actually be quite bulky. But if you got one of the more rectangular Kevlar sort of and knife resistant panels that go as an insert into vests, or like I said, you got a rectangular chopping board, the dimensions that might fit a laptop pocket, you could certainly have them in there with less bulk to it. But yeah, the point is that you can use this, like we were saying, as a shield. This one, because that's the back thing, is actually quite handy for that, but you can obviously have it to have an extra little bit of protection against, being stabbed.